As far as liability goes, it's dangerous to do something that you don't know how it operates. It's dangerous to pull templates off the internet and then send them to people or whatever.
So that being said, how would it look if I had different properties and different assets in different states and or countries?
Okay, different properties. So essentially, how would it look? You're saying if you had trust documentation and you wanted to create a structure where you can hold these assets through different entities and have those entities essentially communicate back and forth with the trust, right?
Well, yeah, different states and countries, however that would look.
Different states and countries. Okay, every country is different. Every nation state is different. Most IMF countries and nation states are pretty much top down, have the same protocols, frameworks, different languages and whatnot, different customs, but they all pretty much operate the same way. What I would do, say I had let's take a hypothetical example, right? In Uganda, for some reason, Uganda's government gets right, and I'm able to purchase some property in Uganda and keep it in that trust. So through that, I would just use the trust entity itself to buy it and purchase it and hold it and whatnot, and then use it to further probably an orphanage. Now, on top of this structure, though, let's say we've got 10 properties in the United States spread out in 10 different states. I would create 10 Wyoming LLCs to hold each one of the properties. I would make the trust not only the beneficial owner of that, but also the 100% controlling manager of those LLCs. And through that process, it would probably be that the trust would come on and DBA as something in order to be able to obscure its name, so that should there be any kind of like reporting requirements or whatever for who are the beneficiaries, who are the trustees of this entity, or rather, who are the managing members, who was the owner, who created it, and so on. It would be through something that would be a DBA that would only become through a private trust, through careful documentation on the minutes side. It would be created out of thin air, and then that would be the entity with the EIN number of the trust that I would use to be able to create those LLCs. And then each one of those LLCs would hold each one of those different properties. Now, if you get very big, you would want a holding company up at the top, and then above that, the trust, right? So the holding company itself, then you can just create a system where all of those LLCs tap into the holding company. The holding company is the one that actually holds the equity. The LLCs hold all of the debt. And then you can have the trust be the owner of everything top down, because it is the 100% primary interest holder in that holding company at the top, right? Now you've created a structure where you have essentially a 508c1a religious entity, faith-based organization at the top, something that's no different from what the Catholic Church can do in reality, right? And it is a non-taxable, non-reporting entity. So now as soon as those LLCs get those notes cleared up, those promissory notes and the purchase agreements for whatever loans and credit was used to leverage to be able to get those properties, and as soon as those properties are free and clear, then what you're essentially doing is you're creating a system where you have a bunch of properties and you have a allodialized title on each one of those. Now, it's a modern day equivalent of what an allodial title would be. Allodial title meaning it can't be taken from you. You can pass it down generations, even if you die and it just sits there in the trust by itself. It can overgrow if that's what your intentions were. State can't come in because you didn't pay 19 taxes that year to be able to, make sure that you could keep floating the bill. So because of that, because these are non-taxable entities, that's essentially the way that I would create some kind of holding company plus a real estate venture. And obviously, brother, we can drill into this as deep as possible, but
Well, here, I wanted to double back on one thing real quick. So you said those LLCs you would use a DBA, right, a doing business as.
Well, you would use a DBA through the trust would DBA as it, because the trust is named something that is a trade secret. You get it as soon as you read it. You'd really grok rye, right? But the trust then can DBA as thousands of entities through the course of its life.
Well, is that more so to obscure people away from this privacy of the trust, or is that more for counting?
The DBA is only reflected on the minute sheets of the trust. And then from there, if you want to create a public side facing document that mimics the original public side facing documentation, you would do it. You would just replace the grantor's name and the name of the trust with whatever the DBA is, and then you'd rock and roll as that. But you don't even need to do it that way. You know, it could be an invisible DBA.